In 1955, a journeyman mason in Cleveland, Ohio, earned more than the average accountant working in the city's downtown office towers across the broader downtown commercial district. He earned more than the average insurance broker, more than the average mid-level engineer. His income came from work he could see, touch, and walk past with his children years later, pointing at buildings he had helped raise. The federal data confirms every claim above, with Bureau of Labor Statistics historical wage records and the census of 1960 showing the same pattern across every major American city. Construction industry surveys of the period show the same wage levels in cities from Boston to San Francisco, with the working mason earning solidly upper-middle-class wages. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics confirms something else in 2026, with the trade still paying well above the American median wage and demand rising every year. The trade still pays well. Demand for new masons rises every year. Why did American schools bury the masonry trade when the buildings are still here? The work is still being done. Welcome to Forgotten Trades Vault. Before we open this vault, hit subscribe so the next archive finds its way to you. The archive opens in 1904 in Cleveland, Ohio. In 1904, Cleveland was the fifth largest city in the United States and one of the fastest-growing industrial centers in the world. The city was building itself out of brick, limestone, sandstone, and granite, at a rate that demanded thousands of working masons every month across new construction and renovation work. Cleveland's population had grown from 160,000 in 1890 to nearly 400,000 by 1900, more than doubling in a single decade of industrial expansion. That growth pulled tens of thousands of working masons into the city from Europe and from the Eastern American states, with Italian, Irish. The Cleveland Arcade, completed in 1890, had been one of the first indoor shopping arcades in America, built almost entirely of stone iron. The Society for Savings Building, completed in 1890, had been the tallest building in Cleveland for more than a decade, with every floor supported by load-bearing masonry construction. The Cleveland Trust Company Tower, completed in 1908, raised the city skyline higher still, with the bank building becoming an iconic landmark of the rapidly growing American Midwest. Every house, every warehouse, every church, every school, every factory, and every commercial building constructed alongside those landmarks was the work of skilled masons working in the city. The trade had been practiced in America since the first European settlements arrived on the continent during the early 17th century across multiple colonial powers. Spanish masons built the missions of the Southwest in the 1600s, with mission walls still standing 4 centuries later as a testament to the durability of their original craft. English and Scottish masons built the colonial public buildings of the eastern seaboard, including the Old State House in Boston, completed in 1713, and Independence Hall in 1753. Italian masons brought the tradition of fine stonework to the country in the 19th century, and their descendants still dominate certain branches of the trade today across major American cities. The Italian-American masons of Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and Chicago built much of the architectural detail that defines those cities today, working through the Great American Building Boom. By the 1860s, every major American city had organized masonry guilds and apprenticeship programs, with formal training pipelines feeding the rapidly growing American urban construction economy. The Bricklayers and Allied Craftworkers International Union, founded in 1865, became the primary professional organization for the trade in North America across the working trade economy. By 1900, the union counted more than 100,000 members across the United States, with chapters in every major American city supporting working masons at every skill level. By 1950, the broader American masonry trade, including union and non-union masons, employed more than 400,000 workers across the country at every level of the industry. The trade dominated several specialties, with brick masons building homes, schools, churches, warehouses, and small commercial buildings across the entire American urban and suburban landscape. Stone masons built monuments, government buildings, high-end residential projects, and the public infrastructure of every major city, with specialty stonework commanding premium wages. Refractory masons built and rebuilt the fire brick interiors of every industrial furnace, oven, and kiln in the country, supporting the steel, glass, ceramic, and chemical industries. Plaster masons and tile setters worked the interior finish work that completed every building project, with their craft visible in the lobbies and public spaces of every American building. The trade was a pillar of American working-class prosperity for nearly a century, with steady employment across recessions and depressions that destroyed other working trades across the same period. A senior journeyman mason in Cleveland in 1955 earned between $9,000 and $14,000 a year. The average accountant in a Cleveland office tower earned between $7,000 and $10,000 in the same period, putting the journeyman mason consistently above the white-collar professional. The journeyman mason often out-earned the man with the office job, the necktie, the desk, and the 4-year college degree. He paid no tuition for his trade, owed no boss above the foreman on the construction site. He retired with a defined benefit pension and a paid-off house, often before his white-collar contemporaries had paid off their starter homes across the suburbs of the city. A mason in Cleveland in 1955 could expect to work 45 to 50 hours per week through most of the construction season. He often took winter slowdowns as paid vacation time, with the union's supplemental unemployment benefits filling the gap between active seasons across the calendar year. His total annual hours were usually fewer than the salaried office worker's hours, but his hourly wage was substantially higher, producing more leisure time and more household income. The trade had a real training pipeline through this period, with the federal Smith-Hughes Act of 1917 putting masonry on the curriculum of American public vocational high schools. The George Barden Act of 1946 expanded that funding after the Second World War, with high school masonry programs reaching their peak enrollment. By the 1950s, every state in the Union ran high school masonry programs, with California alone running more than 200 such programs across its public school system. New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois, and Texas each ran similar numbers, with the high school programs producing thousands of new masons every year for the broader American working trade economy. A typical high school masonry program ran 2 or 3 years and included classroom instruction in mathematics, blueprint reading, and construction estimating, alongside the hands-on shop work. Students built small structures on school grounds, learning bricklaying, stone setting, and mortar work in real conditions under the supervision of experienced instructors at the school. Many programs partnered directly with local bricklayers' union locals, which guaranteed apprenticeship placements for top graduates within weeks of the high school commencement ceremony. A graduating high school senior could walk into a bricklayers' union hall in 1960 and have an apprenticeship slot waiting within the week without any extended application process. The apprenticeship paid from day one lasted 3 to 4 years and produced a journeyman mason with full union credentials ready to work anywhere in the country across every region. The young mason graduated at 22, drew a journeyman wage by 23, and owned his own home by 27. These numbers were not unusual or remarkable. They were simply what the trade produced for every young person who entered it through the post-war decades across the country. Then came the same shift that this channel has documented across so many other American trades, beginning with federal vocational education funding rewrites in the 1960s and 70s. In 1963, the Vocational Education Act began redirecting federal funding away from traditional trade programs and toward what the law called career awareness preparation across schools. In 1972, the Higher Education Amendments massively expanded federal student loans and grants for four-year colleges across the country, drawing teenagers into the university pipeline. A generation of American guidance counselors, trained in the new framework, began steering students away from construction trades and toward four-year college applications and university enrollment. The construction trades were framed as physically demanding, weather-dependent, and intellectually beneath the four-year college path, in the language of guidance materials of the period. That framing ignored the actual income data, the physical demands of office work over a 40-year career. By 1983, a nation at risk had pushed every American state to raise its academic graduation requirements, with electives losing ground to required academic coursework. The high school Masonry programs were among the first to lose their slots in the new schedule. By the year 2000, fewer than 300 American public high schools still offered Masonry as a vocational track within their curriculum at any meaningful depth. By 2020, the number had fallen below 100 programs nationwide, with the high school pipeline into the trade effectively cut across most of the United States entirely. The trade survived, but the high school pipeline was effectively cut across two working generations of American teenagers who never learned the trade existed as a viable career path. Who benefited from the burial of the high school Masonry program across 2 decades of federal vocational funding shifts and state academic reforms across the country? The universities benefited, as they did from every other trade buried in the same period, with the federal student loan portfolio growing to $1.7 trillion today. The Mason was not in the brochure. The cost was paid by the small towns and mid-sized cities that lost their local Masons across the period. Stone restoration on historic buildings became a specialty service available only to clients who could afford to fly in craftsmen from distant states across the country at premium rates. The cost was also paid by the contractors who could not find qualified workers to staff their job sites across the broader American construction industry from 2000 onward. By 2024, the National Association of Home Builders was reporting that more than 70% of its members listed shortage of skilled masons as a serious operational constraint. Some major construction projects across the country are now delayed by months because of the mason shortage alone, with no other input causing the same magnitude of delay. Major infrastructure programs funded by the Federal Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act of 2021 are running into the same constraint at multiple project sites. The average age of an American working mason in 2024 sits above 47 years. The pipeline of new entrants is far below replacement, with American trade schools producing fewer new masons each year than the industry loses to retirement and attrition combined. The trade did not die. The trade was talked out of existence at the high school level, while the actual demand kept growing. Now open the archive on the present. In May of 2024, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported a median annual wage for masonry workers of approximately $54,000 across the broad category. The lowest 10% earned less than $34,000 a year, while the top 10% earned more than $99,000. These are the general numbers, and they include first-year apprentices, and laborer-level workers, along with senior journeymen and specialty contractors at every income level. A senior journeyman mason in a union local in a major American city works steady union scale on commercial and institutional projects across the broader American construction industry. That kind of mason commonly earns between $80,000 and $120,000 a year on routine union work across multiple regions of the United States. A specialist in stone masonry working on high-end residential, institutional, or historic preservation projects regularly earns between $100,000 and $160,000 annually. The historic preservation market alone has expanded rapidly since the year 2000, driven by federal tax credits for restoration and growing private interest in preserving older architecture. A specialist in chimney work, fireplace construction, and exterior brick restoration takes a different income path through the trade across the broader American residential market. In a major metropolitan market, that kind of specialist can bill between $60 and $100 an hour on a small business basis across local accounts and direct customers. A foreman or general foreman managing crews of journeyman masons on major commercial projects often clears between $120,000 and $200,000 a year. A mason contractor running his own small business with a few employees can build a six-figure income within 5 to 7 years of starting the business. The Bureau of Labor Statistics projects continued growth in mason demand through the end of the decade, with the federal data showing sustained shortage at every level of the trade. The American Society of Civil Engineers publishes a periodic report card for American infrastructure that consistently rates American masonry infrastructure as poor or critical for more than 2 decades. Bridges, retaining walls, historic buildings, water infrastructure, and public buildings across the country all require extensive masonry repair and restoration that is not being done at scale. The work is there. The workers are not arriving fast enough to meet the demand. The recession of 2008 did slow new construction temporarily, but it did not stop the demand for repair, restoration. The pandemic of 2020 had a similar pattern, with masonry work continuing through the lockdown period and surging in the renovation and home improvement segments of the trade. The arrival of large language models in 2022 and 2023 did not threaten a single working American mason. A language model can describe how to lay a brick, but it cannot stand on a scaffold at the 3rd story of a Beaux-Arts office building. The path back into the trade is shorter than the path through any 4-year college program, with a registered apprenticeship through the Bricklayers Union producing a certified journeyman. The union maintains apprenticeship programs in every major American city, with many community colleges running masonry certificate programs that feed directly into union apprenticeships nationwide. Tuition for community college masonry programs runs between $2,000 and $8,000 total, often subsidized by partnering employers or by union locals nationwide. The entry wage for a new masonry apprentice in 2025 sits between $38,000 and $48,000 a year. The benefits package typically includes health insurance, dental coverage, vision coverage, and pension contributions, which would cost a non-union worker thousands of dollars per year out of pocket. The Cleveland Arcade still stands, more than 130 years after the masons who built it laid its last stone. The Society for Savings Building still stands. The Cleveland Trust Tower still stands. And every curriculum can be revisited by the person standing on the scaffold, trowel in hand, ready to learn the trade that built the physical structures of every American city. If this vault opened something for you, Leave a comment with the trade you wish your school had taught you instead of college prep. The next vault holds a different look at a trade we have already opened in this archive, examined this time through the lens of Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics data. The numbers will tell a story that no high school in America is currently teaching, with demand projections that no four-year college guidance counselor is currently sharing with students. The next vault opens soon,